Connector-to-connector installation with heat shrink tubing.
All connectors installed in hard-to-reach locations or locations subject to frequent leaks or corrosive environments should be encapsulated in heat shrink tubing. Before the heat shrink can be applied, the cable should be completely set up and tested. Refer to the PAL-AT operating manual for proper setup procedures and sections of the PAL-AT installation manual for cable and connector testing procedures, or to the cable and connector testing video. First, we're going to slide a 6-inch piece of thin-walled heat shrink tubing onto one of the cables.
Thread the coupling ring back far enough so that the face of the plug can touch the face of the adapter. Push on and rotate the adapter until the teeth of the face of the plug lock into the grooves on the face of the adapter. Tighten the coupling ring onto the adapter.
Repeat the process with the other connector. Tighten the connector assembly together as tight as you can with your fingers. There is no need to use pliers. This could over-tighten and damage the connectors. Now we'll apply a bead of non-corrosive silicone rubber adhesive sealant, or RTV. Apply a 1/4 inch bead to the cable just where it comes out of the connector assembly. Make sure we go all the way around the circumference of the cable on both sides of our assembly. Try to keep the bead fairly equal around the circumference of the cable. The RTV sealant helps to prevent liquid from getting into the connector after the heat shrink has been applied. Next, we're going to slide up our 6-inch piece of shrink tubing. Make the shrink tubing round so that we can get it over our beads of RTV. Slide on the shrink tubing until it is centered over the middle of the assembled connector assembly. When shrinking the shrink tubing, we want to start from the center of the tube and work our way towards one end, and then from the center to the other end. When shrinking the tubing over the connector part of the assembly, we must be careful that we don't over shrink the tubing, or it could split or tear. When shrinking the tube near the end where the cable comes out, be careful not to overheat it, because you might melt the protective overbraid on the cable. If you do accidentally melt some of the overbraid, don't be concerned, because it will not affect the liquid detecting ability of the cable. The protective overbraid is mainly for the installation process of the cable. For example, when you're pulling it through a double-contained pipe or installing it underneath a subfloor. So, once the cable is installed, the protective overbraid, though still providing protection for the cable, is now mainly cosmetic. When the heat shrink tubing is completely shrunk, allow the assembly to cool for 2 to 5 minutes. After the assembly is cooled, the heat shrink installation is complete.